Hi, everybody. Welcome to the South Burlington Library. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming very much. I want to start by thanking Rajni Edens and Renee Renteria for bringing the Vibrant Lives project to our library. Many thanks to Town Meeting TV. Thank you very much, MJ. It's wonderful to have you here to record the event. The recording will be available, the recording of the panel will be available a couple of days after this event, and it'll be on the Town Meeting TV website, and your librarians would be happy to help you find it. Restrooms and water fountains are directly out the back doors of the auditorium. Just walk straight down the hallway. They're pretty quick. On your left for the restrooms, on the right for the water fountains. Yes. I really hope that you'll join us after the panel out in the public art gallery just outside these doors for a light snack and some conversation, more sharing of stories. Now is a magnificent time to silence your cell phone if you haven't already done that. Even if you think you've done it, what can it hurt to check? I want to, before I forget, thank the Friends of the Library. Several of you are here today, and I want you to know that your donations to the Friends of the Library have helped to make it possible for us to host this event here today. So thank you very much. Okay, getting on to the introduction. Thank you for joining us to commemorate Juneteenth today, and for the rest of this week being part of special events around the city of South Burlington. I will have information about those events later in the week, including a Thursday evening outdoor concert with Jenny and the Junketeers at Veterans Memorial Park down on Dorset Street. Vibrant Lives, Discovering Our Roots of Black Vermont is a community-driven public oral history initiative, illuminating the often unseen histories, stories, and living legacies of Black Vermonters. I want to let Rajni and Renee speak to the project itself, because frankly, hearing the two of them speak about this loving endeavor, as I've had the privilege to do, it's just a beautiful experience, and I want you all to have that. I will say that I hope today will be a beginning or maybe a middle of a journey of discovery for each of you, not an ending. The Vibrant Lives Project asserts, and I completely agree, that shared story is a necessity, it's not an option. Please keep engaging with stories. Engage in the conversation today. We have a magnificent panel of speakers of varied experiences and knowledge, and they are here to engage with you. Please engage with them. Thank you, welcome. Use your South Burlington library card sometime this summer if you've got one, or use your own library card at your own library to borrow a pass to the Rokeby Museum, which is dedicated to the history of the Underground Railroad. That museum is in Ferrisburg. It's definitely worth a trip. It's a really nice space. And finally, come back to the South Burlington Library anytime between June 30th and August 31st to view the full Vibrant Lives photo photography exhibit. Thank you so much to Rajni and Renee. The exhibit is going to be on display on the second floor of the library from June 30th through August 31st. And with that, I turn it over to our event presenters, Renee and Rajni. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Over 30 years ago, I was introduced to the poetry of Khalil Gibran, the Lebanese-American poet. A single line from one of his prose poems in The Prophet has stayed with me ever since. And the line is, "Work is love made visible." If work is love made visible, then I believe that listening is an act of love. Oral history is built upon this foundation, the practice of listening and noticing with both heart and mind. We all want connection. We yearn for spaces where we can feel safe, seen, and accepted. We long and thirst for justice, liberation, joy, and sustainable wellness for ourselves, our families, and our communities. Ultimately, people need to thrive, not just survive. My name is Rene Renteria, and I'm one of the co-founders of Vibrant Lives, Discovering Our Roots of Black Vermont. I'm the guy who has the camera, and you can see my work up there. This initiative is an oral history project and public exhibit focused on Black residents of Burlington and surrounding Chittenden County. We seek to highlight the diverse experiences, cultures, and significant contributions of African Americans in our area. Vibrant Lives is a testament to the transformative power of listening. We manifest that love by honoring the stories of our community and ensuring that voices are heard, valued, and preserved for generations to come. So I thank you for being here as we present Celebrating Freedom and Cultivating Community. And today we're going to explore the legacy of Juneteenth in our nation and in Vermont through a panel discussion and share a glimpse into the Vibrant Lives Oral History Project. As I noted in the one-page overview, which hopefully some of you have or most of you have, Juneteenth was established as a federal holiday in 2021 to honor the resilience of Black Americans and our nation's ongoing pursuit of true equality. And we wish to share these stories, celebrate our history, and nurture our community ties. But before we begin our panel discussion, I want to invite you to bring that philosophy, that listening is an act of love, directly into this room. So let's create a space where we can truly practice this connection. You'll get to experience a kind of micro model of the Vibrant Lives mission. So here's what we're going to do. Please find a partner nearby to form a pair. So start looking at somebody. It would be nice if you pick someone you don't know, but that's okay. And when I signal the beginning, start by simply saying hello and introducing yourselves. And you're going to have about a minute or so to share your thoughts to one of the prompts displayed on the screen. Is it up there? There it is. Which one is the one that resonates with you right now? So be thinking about that. And so as one person speaks, the other will practice the art of listening, offering full, undivided attention without interruption or comments. And then when you hear the bell, please thank your partner. And that's your signal to switch the roles, ensuring both voices are equally heard and valued. So I'm going to get my timer. You've got your person you want to talk with. You got your prompt, hopefully. Here I go. You can get up and move around if you want, if you're able to do that. All right, so here we go. I'm going to ring the bell shortly.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
Did you find your partner? Here we go. Hopefully that was okay for you guys. I want to thank you for being part of this grounding exercise. So before we turn to our history, I want you to notice that we have just created a moment of history together.
That's true.
By intentionally hearing and being heard, we laid the groundwork for our panel discussion, proving that a powerful way to cultivate community is simply offering one another the dignity of being seen. I want to pass it to my other friend here, my co-founder, Rajni, and he'll lead us to the next section. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Renee. And thank you all for being here. It's a blessing to be together. The Vibrant Lives Project, Discovering Our Roots of Black Vermont, is a very special and sacred honoring project. We want to lift up the voices of Black people in community and to have the space to honor the history and a legacy of the meaning of Juneteenth at a time in our nation where there's so much suppression and oppression of the stories and narratives and contributions of Black people is a vital task and obligation. I want to thank you all for being present and hold space now to defer to our brilliant youth interviewers and moderators to hold space for the introduction of the panel as we enter the panel discussion. So please give a warm round of applause for Nadia Frazier and Amina Rhodes Eddins.
Can you guys hear me? Perfect. All right, guys, my name is Nadia. I'm going to be your moderator today. I guess let's just get started with some introductions. If each and every one of you would like to tell us all your name and a brief introduction about yourself.
I can start. Hi, everyone. My name is Amina Rhodes, and I am an incoming freshman at the new Burlington High School. I am active in the community as a writer and student activist in the district. I participate in interviews, like for the Vibrant Lives Project, and social events, and I am honored to be here today listening and reflecting on the knowledge that you all will share. I believe that my voice as a youth and as a person of color matters in this setting because I can bring a fresh perspective as the future generation, as well as exchanging wisdom and resilience with the other participants. I am here to listen and engage, but also to help look at things from new angles and to evaluate and build on everyone's responses. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Denise Dunbar. Can you hear me?
I guess not. Now you can. I'm Denise Dunbar. I'm a resident of South Burlington. I've been invested in my community in many ways. My biggest joy and my biggest investment has been engaging with young people around these topics. What do I mean by that? I used to lead a program in the state of Vermont called Reading to End Racism. And it was a program bringing young people together across the state to have these kind of conversations. And what we've garnered from that, our young people have learned they have a lot in common, but they also have a lot to celebrate in their diversity and differences. It makes us all rich for it. So I feel very honored that I'm here amongst folks in the community, and I'm ready to have the conversation. We need to have these conversations. And if there's any time that's right, it's right now.
Good afternoon.
There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Jolivet Anderson Duaning. I am a professor of history and American studies at St. Michael's College here in Colchester, Vermont. I'm also the director of the Institute for Equity and Justice at St. Michael's. I am originally from the South. I'm from the state of Louisiana, a town called Shreveport. And last year, around this time, my daughter and I were on this very stage doing performance for Juneteenth, and it was called The Sixth Generation. And that's because we have documented proof of the names of women, Black women, going back in our family for 6 generations in North Louisiana. And I bring that up because oftentimes when people don't know the South, or they visit the South as a tourist and maybe go to New Orleans or something like that, you don't have an understanding of how people actually live their day-to-day lives and how Black Americans specifically had to navigate and negotiate violence on a daily basis. And so being a part of a sixth generation, where I'm the 5th and my daughter is the 6th, it is my mission to help people process and understand history through lived experiences. And the lived experience that I bring is not just mine, it is my mother's, it is my grandmother's specifically, because she left a handwritten ledger, 64-page handwritten ledger, documenting many of the things that she did in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s during Jim Crow segregation. And because of that document, I got a PhD from Purdue University. And also, it's important that I use that document, that I get in all of your beautiful faces to tell you about that history, because what was embedded in my grandmother's ledger that she wrote about her life and how she conducted herself in the neighborhood that I grew up in the 1940s and 50s and 60s, are instructions for how we're supposed to navigate these times. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Elise Guyette. I live in South Burlington. I'm a historian and an educator. And by way of introduction to how I got into this work, I brought a few artifacts, show and tell. So I wrote a book called Discovering Black Vermont, which I do not like the title at all, but that's what the publisher picked. But it's about a Black farming community in Heinsberg that was started in the 1790s. This is a story that was totally erased, totally destroyed. The cemetery was destroyed. Nobody knew what happened to these people. So I decided somebody had to do something about it, and that ended up being me, and they grabbed me by the throat and haven't let go yet. I'm still researching that family. But a lot of people say, well, why did you do that? How did you get there? And my answer really goes, when I was in 4th grade, I grew up in Rutland, Vermont. I'm going to talk really fast because I know I don't have that much time. So I grew up in Rutland, Vermont. I'm French Canadian, I'm Irish, I'm Lebanese. When I was in 4th grade, I couldn't wait to learn Vermont history because I thought, I'm going to find out why all these people are here, why I'm surrounded by all this diversity. So I get the little green Vermont history book, and of course, you know what was in it. Not me. Not anybody like me, no women. So I learned very early about silences in history. And Toni Morrison calls silences violence, bloodless violence, but violence nevertheless. I ended up just picturing myself as being invisible because nobody like me ever did anything important, right? Because we weren't in the history books. Fast forward, I was teaching 4th grade in Swanton. They gave me the same book to teach my students. So that's when I said, well, nobody else has written a new history. I guess it's going to have to be me. So I started searching for lost stories. So I wrote a book called Vermont, A Cultural Patchwork, and this is the history of Vermont from the point of view of different ethnic groups who have come through the state. I worked at Shelburne Museum for a while. I was asked to write a teacher's guide to a traveling exhibit. This poster is part of the traveling exhibit. It has cigar store Indians there. So I wrote an activity about cigar store Indians and stereotyping. Mm-hmm. I was censored. The insurance company who was paying for it wouldn't pay for it if there was a stereotyping activity in the book. We started calling it the S word in the book. These are just examples of how easily these important stories are lost or purposefully erased. So I was asked to write a different activity, and I did because I worked there and I was being paid. And I wrote an activity on duck decoys because I thought, well, at least I can get, Native peoples in there creating and making art, and hunting and fishing, and maybe I could break down stereotypes in a different way. But I was not happy at all. Another museum nearby asked me to write a teacher's guide for a Ogden B. Reed exhibit. Captain Reed was somebody who went to the Lakotas in the closing of the frontier, burned down villages, killed people, but took things first. And the Fleming Museum has his collection. So I said, I'll write a teacher's guide for you if you won't censor me. And they said, we won't censor you. So I wrote an activity about a saddle that was in the exhibit, a 4-year-old girl. And I wanted kids to look at that saddle from the point of view of that little girl. I was censored again. And I'll just hold up my last picture is I refused to write another activity that time. I said, no, you said you weren't going to censor me. So they wrote it. And this is the activity, an outline of a horse. And the kids were to sit on the floor and draw a saddle on the horse. So they had taken gritty, real, honest history that would interest children, and they changed it into a romantic vision of somebody sitting on the floor drawing a saddle on a horse. That's how easily these important stories are erased.
Good afternoon. My name is Irene Renner. I live in Essex Town. I've been active in local government for 20 plus years. If you are aware that Essex Junction left Essex Town and you want to know more, ask me why. But it was all about fairness in taxation and fairness in representation. And now both the town of Essex and the city of Essex Junction have that. More recently, I've served in state government as a senator from a district known as Chittenden North, which is Milton, Fairfax, Westford, and Northern Essex. As a senator, I ask people that I meet for ideas for new laws, or laws that we should fix, or laws that we should eliminate. It's all too easy to go to Montpelier and listen to the biggest donor, or a lobby, or your party. I take ideas from the people that I meet as I knock on their doors. One of the bills requested was to make Juneteenth a state holiday. I built on the work earlier of my colleague to my right, Roy Hill, who started the ball rolling. And in 2024, we made Juneteenth a state holiday in Vermont. Both chambers passed it overwhelmingly, and the governor signed it. So that's why I'm here today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Roy V. Hill II. Thank you for being here. I thank you because you're among the woke. Perhaps I should share what I mean when I say that. So I'll draw upon Merriam-Webster, not politicians. And what I read in the dictionary is woke is an adjective, noun used to describe awareness of and active attention to important social, racial, political issues, especially those related to justice, inequality, and identity. Merriam-Webster. Thank you again. Who am I and why am I here? Born in the state of Tennessee, along with the Ku Klux Klan, the people who tried to murder my paternal grandfather, simply because they disliked the 1954 Supreme Court and they didn't want those Negro children to have the fair amount of education as all the other children. I remember growing up in that schoolhouse where the red torn books were available to us. 10 years later, I'm here. But the other thing I should say is my feet. My feet are in 3 quadrants. CCC, the church, the campus, and the community. Community that is people, us who are members of this 8 billion point one, who are part of this one human family on this one place called planet Earth. After working, well, and I believe that it was the spirit of the church that saved his life, my grandfather, and it was brought together the white people and the black people in the community that told the vigilantes, leave George alone. That's my grandfather. Secondly, the campus. After 2.5 degrees, I woke up one day on the campus, on the 3rd campus in Washington University, Dartmouth, Brown, with the full realization that I know all of this about PWIs, predominantly white institutions, and I know practically nothing about HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. And it dawned on me, I'm a fraud if I consider myself an educated person and know practically nothing about half of the education in this country. So I left Brown and had the experience of working for and training many people at HBCUs. So I came here with the intent of being here at max, maybe 6 years, out of here in 4 or so. Wife and I now are going on our 40th year. Something about the water, but that's another story, right? And in 2001, Dr. Ronald V. Myers telephoned me and introduced himself and said, how about Vermont becoming the 29th state to have a Juneteenth day? We think, the National Juneteenth Foundation, that Vermont is the kind of leadership place that would embrace Juneteenth. I said, what is Juneteenth? And how'd you get my number? And long and short is, he explained that Dr. Myers, MD, ordained Baptist preacher, musician, mean piano and blows a horn, went to and fro across this country, lifting up Juneteenth. He served, he's now dead, in one of the poorest places in Mississippi. Oftentimes people would come and pay him slide of pork, eggs, especially when the chickens were laying, etc. But he had a passion for right and justice, coming out of not only his training, if you know the Hippo creed the doctors take, and you understand the true meaning of the currency in your pocket that says, quote, in God we trust. Think about that. So he went to and fro. And before he died and before Biden and all politically made Juneteenth a national holiday, he went across his countries and got 41 states. 41 states to have a Juneteenth day. That's just the beginning. Oh, yeah, I have some I do a lot of stuff with the faith community. I have some Baptist roots, and you know Baptist people, they just talk too much and too long. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, everybody. We are going to go ahead and get started. So we are going to start out with our first topic, which is freedom, fairness, and Vermont's story. So for question 1, we have, what important lessons about freedom and fairness can Vermonters learn from the history of Juneteenth? And I want to ask Dr. Roy Hill, Denise Dunbar, and Dr. Jolivet to answer this one. Whoever's ready may start when they are set.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. What important lessons about freedom and fairness can Vermonters learn from the history of Juneteenth?
I think I can go first. One of the things that I've found as an American Studies scholar who teaches history is that oftentimes we don't make connections to what is written on the page and the actual lived experience. And so as I was reading our information here. It talks about the Confederacy, the remote reaches of the Confederacy. What I would like to share is a tidbit. When the Confederacy in the South, around the time of when Juneteenth happened, they knew that they were in trouble, and they knew that they were getting ready to lose the war, Civil War, and they were skedaddling, to use a Southern term. And anyone know where they were headed?
Argentina.
There was like some, I believe, South American country, but a lot of
Okay. The part that I'm talking about is actually Mexico. They were headed to Mexico, and with the goal of restarting the Confederacy to push the Confederacy's agenda and initiatives the same way they were doing or trying to do in the U.S. South. So their agenda was slavery now, slavery forever. Okay? So they were trying to shift to another location, but to come back with a vengeance to try to implement the same things that they were doing to Black folks in the South, right? And that particular history of the Confederacy going down there is going to connect, I don't have time to go into all of it now, is going to connect to Cinco de Mayo, right? And the Alamo, when we talk about slavery, okay? So it's important, I think, for us to understand freedom and fairness from the Black American perspective. And that's the perspective that I speak from. Because I go back 6 generations in this country, documented, actually longer. My family has been in this country longer than the country has been a country. So bloodline goes back to actually 1750. Okay? And so as a Black American who understands freedom and fairness, when I say that we had to navigate and negotiate violence, I'm talking about how we practice our own liberation, how we set ourselves free, how from within those segregated spaces we were assigned to, we created a life so that I could even be here, so that I could have my daughter could be in existence. And a lot of times, the stereotypes about who we are as Black Americans trample on that freedom and trample on what should be fair and how we are educated about all people. So with that, I'll be quiet, but I want to encourage us, because I landed in Vermont in an African diaspora community that doesn't always trust me because I'm Black American. And if you don't know the nuances, right, you're going to be confused. You're going to wonder what's going on. But it's important for us to understand the regions and understand how liberation had to be enacted, how freedom had to be enacted. Freedom as a Louisiana person and a Black don't look the same as freedom as my ex-husband who's been here for 25 years as an African immigrant. It's not the same. So I would encourage us to think in that way, think comparatively, and think about how the fact that because the Confederacy was trying to shift and move to Mexico, but still had the same agenda, that's how we got to the present moment, family.
Yes.
After 1965 and 1964 Voting Rights Act and Civil Rights Act, the attitudes of people did not change. So if you don't know the nastiness of that attitude, if you don't know the evil of that attitude, the anti-Blackness of that attitude, you're not going to understand the present moment. Thank you.
Did you?
Yeah, you good. You were good.
You okay? Hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
Green light.
Okay. Red light. Red light. It was a game. I'm going to add on to what Sister has said. I got to move this. I got one of them voices, except when you vex me. the coming together of diasporic people. I am descended from first generation born Jamaican. My father, immigrant. My mother was, they're both deceased, an Afro-Indigenous American. So I understand the conversation. And sometimes it vexes me as well, because this is where we lost our solidarity in a sense, although we can still bring that together as far as solidarity goes. I guess I should back up. As you can tell by my accent, I'm from Brooklyn. And I was raised in a household that was way awake. They used to call my father whenever he would have these conversations around race. Uh-oh, we're having an Uncle Sonny moment. So I grew up in that. We had conversations. I also grew up in Crown Heights. You all know, familiar with Crown Heights? Before it became Caribbean, we were kind of like blockbusters in a sense. We moved from Bed-Stuy to Crown Heights, and we integrated the neighborhood. We moved from Crown Heights to Roosevelt, Long Island. I think there was a documentary about that community called Race, the Power of Illusion. They highlighted the community I grew up in. We moved to Roosevelt and saw the community empty out within a year. And you want to talk about what saved me in that community? I had teachers in the school that were HBCU educated. We sang, "Lift Every Voice and Sing." We had teachers that held up the bar. So yeah, you need to hear these stories, because coming to Vermont, people thought I came in on the hall, what was like a drug hall. No, what actually brought me to Vermont was a spiritual community. That the path of Buddhism and indigenous lifeways and spirituality. That's what drew me to Vermont, the nature, the environment. So we all have a lot to learn about each other as far as dispelling stereotypes. We have to, and we got to do it for our kids. We have to example that. But I'm not going to run my mouth anymore. The fact that we can learn here in Vermont, we have been progressive in many ways. Remember, Vermont's exceptionality is all founded on its progressiveness, its inclusion. Although, I don't remember who wrote the book, but prior to the age of 18, you could be held as an exploited Black person in this state. Okay, so yeah, you got to read, you got to study. I encourage people to crack a book. History's so exciting. We learn about ourselves and others, and that helps us bridge. It helps us bridge. We all came over here seeking our ancestors. I'm not going to talk for everybody, but the majority of us have immigrant ancestors. The first flow didn't have to have paperwork. They just got here. The other flow was stolen folk. They didn't even get on any paperwork. We need to understand these stories. And I'm fortunate because I grew up in a household where oral tradition was highly valued, as well as written traditions. And when I talk about written traditions, I'm not only talking about Western writing, I'm talking about hieroglyphs and all the rest of the traditions that are written by human beings. So let's roll our sleeves up. A lot of people hear us. They at least hear this from me. Let's get the work going. We want to leave a legacy to our children that is not chaos, confusion, and the same old stuff that we all were born into and never asked for it. Thus, we have it, though. Thank you.
Roy, would you like to answer next?
I can't say no. I'm in front of all these people. But thank you for pointing it out. And I thank you again for your time and your openness as members of this one human family. Freedom and unity. I think that's the motto for Vermont, right? Amen. there is no freedom, there is no unity unless that reality speaks to all of us. Because when you hold me down, you figuratively, you're holding yourself down. And generations to come who repeat the same blindness as we go forth. How much thought are you giving to the fact that there are other countries now which have surpassed not only many of us, quote, adults, but our children in terms of education? And yet we're cutting back on education in terms of federal dollars and programs and things of that sort. It is written, that slogan on the money in your pocket, in God we trust, that we're made in the image and likeness of the Most High God, who has gifted us with so much between our ears, more words than just that one four-letter word that we hear a lot. Fact is, I came to a stop there. I live in Franklin County, and this woman drove up beside me, and she saluted me, with one finger. I didn't know if she was bragging about her IQ or if she was talking about something else. But I'm saying, we fall so deep, and we listen to others who beat that drum, and we know that that drum beat is wrong, but we're silent. Yet we can speak, and our voice is so powerful. And it's important for us to not let media dictate and condition us when we know better. Even our children know better. I'll stop by saying, making a reference to the following. It's a proclamation. It says, whereas Juneteenth, also known as Emancipation Day, commemorates passage of the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, Juneteenth National Freedom Day is the oldest and only African-American holiday observance in the United States, and is observed in multiple other countries. If you'd like to know the names of some of those, I'll share that with you. Whereas the Vermont Juneteenth Committee was established in 1999 when Shirley Boyd Hill was appointed chairperson by the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. And whereas the Vermont Juneteenth Committee, in collaboration with Interfaith Vermonters Against Racism and others, has launched an official statewide observance. And whereas the 2001 Vermont General Assembly declared Saturday, June 16, 2001, to be Juneteenth Freedom Day in the state of Vermont. Now, therefore, by the powers vested in me as mayor of the city of Burlington, Vermont, I, Peter Clavel, do therefore proclaim Saturday, June 16, 2001 as Juneteenth Day in the city of Burlington, and encourage citizens to participate in Juneteenth activities, blah, blah. What did I just say in part? That there are gems of history that we have yet to learn and can learn and make a difference. We hear a lot out of Washington, D.C. we hear a lot of negative stuff and stuff that is anti-inclusion and fairness. But just recently, didn't we see, we universally, globally, see a magnificent display of inclusion and genius? That rocket ship that went up had men, women, some colored, at least one, and some others. That's inclusion. That's diversity. That's freedom. That speaks to the mind of what we can do collectively as community, as people. There is no reason for homelessness. There is no reason for, and I can go on down that well, in terms of some of the ills, not only those who actually happen in terms of the children who are killing other children, bang, bang, and that kind of stuff, but the psychological impact Why are there so many counselors in our high schools across the state who are prescribing drugs to our kids? Oh, he's anxious. Oh, she's anxious. Give him some drugs. Give him some drugs. Let's put some more money into the school system. Let's put some more money into. Do you know how much money we put? Well, let me get off of that. But I'm saying those are some of the multiple examples that speak to us as a people who can make a difference. We are here, marching from the womb to the tomb. All of us are terminal. But in this space that we have, we can make a difference. And we drop that pebble in the water and the waves keep moving forth, touching others and making a difference, carrying our message. There are ways we can talk. There are ways we can, you notice I kept saying that? We. And that's what it's all about. And can be better. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Roy, Denise, and Jolivet. We are now going to take a 10 minute break just to take a look at some art. There's some snacks in the back. Bathrooms are out in the hallway. And then we will reconvene at 2:35. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, so the way the art is set up here, it's two-sided. And actually, when we first rolled out the exhibition at the Fletcher Free Library, I was trying to be very mindful of the footprint. And also, I decided to do two-sided because that way there might be one person on one side and the other person on the other side, and then maybe they might come around and have a conversation. So what'll happen is you'll see their name, you'll see a QR code, and you can scan that QR code, and all of the interviews that we did will go up to that web page. So they're there. So you can take a look at it. And that other one over there, that's a little project I did with some young people at the Richard Kemp Center. And so again, I was trying to introduce storytelling, noticing, and what I did was I gave them a prompt, and I borrowed this idea from Wendy Ewald, who also had worked with some young people back in the day in Appalachia. And basically, the prompt ultimately was, what is the best part of yourself? And so what I did is I brought toy cameras and I gave them to the young people. They did some writing. They knew what the prompt was going to be, and then they took pictures. So you might want to take a look at that because there's some really amazing writing that some of the young people did, especially Mary. So let's take a break. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you, brother. You think I'm making sense?
I need to put my joke back together.
What frustration you had with the censorship, holy smokes.
Lightning speed answers.
It was a real shock to me.
Yes.
Yeah, here in Vermont.
You
of all
run
places,
into,
right?
well, you run into the power of the corporate.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful experience. We got to make sure we take it to
So you gotta just go.
Yeah.
Do it yourself.
Yes.
So I wonder what questions are going to cut out.
You wonder what?
What questions are going to cut out? Because we're running way over.
I have no idea.
Hello. You look familiar.
No, 'cause
Good
I
to see
think I
you.
have 2 more.
Yeah, usually I just see it at the bank now.
Yeah.
I've never
Yeah,
seen
they're
it
not
live.
gonna have time for that.
That's now I know I was gonna get.
Oh, great, great. Wonderful.
Hello, dear. Hey, Zan. How are you? Thanks for coming.
How are you guys doing?
Great.
We're okay.
With everybody on the panel, I'm pretty much happy.
You know us all. It's cool.
Yeah,
No? You know a lot of us.
And I feel very connected to at least 3
How are you?
And I know.
You?
Good.
Okay, good.
One of the
Yeah.
things that I always tell people is
My
I look
favorite.
for feedback. So I always try to improve communicating with others, you know. So feel free to be thoughtful in sharing observations about how I can improve. I'm always open, you know.
I noticed that all of you have that in common. to open and inviting to hear reflections, and also just open to. I mean, that's
Open and curious.
open and
It's
curious.
important.
That's the bottom line.
Yep. Yeah. Did you send in your packet yet?
No, did you see the latest disaster?
No.
I'm actually glad because I think it will allow me to pull it.
Yeah, when I saw the lineup, because I didn't know who it was going to be, you know, he didn't tell us. Till the end, you might say.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, wow, this is sweet.
It is. It sure is easier than me trying to get into your building to talk to you.
Yeah.
Too funny. You're locked in there safely and soundly. Yeah. I made it.
Find that room, you know.
Okay.
You know, you're drinking all this water.
I know.
Yeah. Having a big thirst here.
Yeah.
But then it's depends on what it is. And if you're if you can, let's say, for example, so in 1885, start doing it, but most towns did not start doing that.
Do you remember the Simpson family?
Of course, my daughter's still driving that little. No, she lives in Somerville, Mass. She works from home, so she doesn't have to drive much. When she comes back here, like she did 2 weeks ago, to meet our new cat, and she has a Massachusetts license plate that has SAP SAP on it. I'm like, how appropriate that the Vermonter would get SAP, whatever the number is. So I think it's hysterical. How nice that you can come.
This is interesting.
How's your husband?
He's good.
Is he here too? Okay. That's wonderful. Yeah, no, it's doing well by her. And
That's so funny to know it's still going. Every time
oh,
I
it
see
is.
one, that color.
Yeah, no, Riley still has her. She's still driving. And I had to replace mine a couple months ago. I have a navy blue version. It was an 09, and my mechanic said it's soggy. That's how rusted it is, and it hadn't passed inspection for a little while. So I got online and I found another navy blue one, which is hard to find in those Gen 2s because that was the new color for like 2010. But they did do a few of them in 2009. 2009. 2009. And so down in Southborough, Massachusetts, you got to drive 4 hours, but it was a car from Virginia, so there's no rust on it. I took it to a mechanic before I sealed the deal, and he put up, he's showing me all this stuff. And they were, you know, obviously at 120,000 miles and that many years old. In 2008 it was. So I actually bought an older car than the one I was trading in. But it had the right color and no rust. And I bought down mileage because mine had like 171. So I'm down to 120 and I'm zooming around and it's great.
That's so funny. Well,
they're terrific
we
cars.
had another one after that. And then now we're down to one car.
Okay.
We just bought we had another hybrid, liked it.
Okay. A Toyota or different one?
It's a Corolla Cross.
Those are lovely.
Our last car, one car, we have to make appointments with each other.
Oh,
no.
Oh, no.
But it's working. It's working. It's great.
That's great.
Well, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for reminding me who you are. I will tell Riley that I saw you.
Inquired about the car. Cool.
She just got a new cat, so that's what I'm getting text of right now. But same car, but new cat. Thanks so much, Mrs. Simpson. Good to see you.
Literally, you're just like, someone's gonna be saying something.
We just started.
Yeah, yeah, but you're like nodding right now. Yeah, no, you could also be. Well, this is good. Okay. Yay! Those are all things that you would do.
So I say,
Okay.
you're doing great.
Yeah, but I haven't seen him.
Thank you. It's no moment. No
All right, round two.
Yes.
This is great.
It really is.
Okay, we're going to start real soon. Come on back. If you can hear me, we're going to start real soon.
The weather really cooperated, didn't it?
No, I know. I'm from Seattle, so.
Oh. Yes, anytime. I bought your book of poetry at the Essex Junction Juneteenth, which was like 5 years ago, maybe, right? When you were there. Still enjoying it. Thank you.
Text and necessary
Oh my gosh, for sure. For sure.
Let them out the gate and they don't know how to come back.
It's hard because you want to circulate, you want to get a job.
All right. So let's talk about what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to start and have a part 2, and hopefully you all have a little rest and some nice food in your belly. I did want to spend like just 1 minute. So the table over there, it's a display table for the Burlington History Culture Center. And the connection here is that the Burlington History Culture Center is the fiscal sponsor for Vibrant Lives. And actually, we have a couple of leadership here. That's Elise over here. And Gail, where are you? Want to raise your hand? This is such an exciting project. Oh my goodness. One day, not too long from now, there will actually be a Burlington History and Culture Center. And the kind of stories that maybe you're hearing or if you've heard about in your life experience, maybe one day that'll be in the museum. So there's a lot of planning, a lot of great thinking. And so I really want to thank Gail and Elise for helping us out. Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. Back to you.
All right, everybody. We are going to move into topic 2, which is youth education and historical understanding. In the interest of time, let's try and keep our responses to 1.5 to 2 minutes, okay? So the question goes, what are the most effective ways for schools to teach Juneteenth and why? Dr. Jolivet, would you like to start?
I don't think I have a choice. Like he said. Can you repeat the question?
Of course. What are the most effective ways for schools to teach Juneteenth and why?
I think the most effective ways for schools to teach Juneteenth is through lived experience history. And it means taking theory and putting it into practice, but not just practice, praxis, right? The difference in the word, praxis means that what you are doing, what you are putting into practice, you are intentionally doing that because you want to see something change in society. Right? That is that praxis. And the way that we do that, I think, is I can give an example. When I lived in Mississippi for 10 years, I was fortunate enough to work for Bob Moses, who was the orchestrator of Freedom Summer. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that happened was his children ran an after-school program called the Young People's Project, which was a math literacy program. What they did was in this after-school program, they actually found funding to pay students to come and learn math, train them as math literacy workers, and to go out with Dr. Moses when he had speaking engagements to actually demonstrate, right, how math literacy work is done and how teaching algebra is done. The background for that was algebra and that kind of thinking that's required is what's needed to be in the 21st century working with technologies. It is the language of the computers. That was what Dr. Moses was saying. But what was instructional about that for me as his assistant and working with the young people as well, what was instructional is that these young people were able to have income that impacted their families. while they were learning. And some of them now are in their 40s and they're still doing this kind of organizing work or similar work with people that are younger than them. Because the model was the 6th and 8th graders want to be like the 10th and 12th graders, right? The 10th and 12th graders want to be like the college students, right? The college students are trying to think about how they're going to venture into their life. So if we look at that, right, as a feeder pattern or as a stair step and actually bring folks together intergenerationally, providing the opportunities through funding, providing the opportunities through specific programs to actually bring people together. I think that is one of the best ways to teach not just Juneteenth, but to teach any and everything about multiple cultures. And the focus that I focus on right now is Black people. Wherever we are in the world, you know, and before I forget, I got to send a quick shout out. I am actually working with the Rastafari community in Jamaica, in Montego Bay and Coral Gardens. Also, an organization called Life Yard in Kingston that works with young people. And also in Belmont Bluefields, where the Peter Tosh Foundation is working. One of the hardest hit areas, and it's where Peter Tosh is buried. And the organization is Coral Gardens Benevolent Society in Montego Bay. This is post-Hurricane Melissa work that I'm doing as the Equity and Institute Director at St. Mike's, but also because it is my passion to work with people throughout the diaspora to try to bring folks together so that we can have a better understanding. So as an organizer, I learned from Bob Moses and SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Dave Dennis and the Congress of Racial Equality. These are the people that trained me, right? And that's another way, mentorship. And I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Now you are. I tell you. Simple instructions. That's my neurodiversity. We're going to get back onto, and I'm a tandem onto you with that. And as you know, the program that we have in the state, endorsed by the New England Education Association. So it's not something that's been grabbed out of the air and just thrown in the schoolhouse. Some schools have even immersed them in the curriculum. What I'm talking about, Reading to End Racism. And it talks about everything. We're going to talk about the intersectionality. We're going to talk about, making the connection that when you steal folks from their homeland, we need to understand there's a big distinction between what we understand as, well, slavery's gone all around all over the world, and chattel slavery, a big distinction. We understand this country was founded on going into lands and stealing people, bringing them back and exploiting them with no pay into the future. Remember, the codes that came in that kind of sanctioned the exploitation and captivity of African-descended people were put into law, and it came through. The most important DNA that we carry, and that's our mother, the MT. That's some wicked stuff. That's wicked. But we need to talk about this to make a connection. When we bring to end racism in the school, because we've had a lot of pushback, we want our kids to be comfortable. Well, we all want to be comfortable. Black children are not comfortable being bullied in the schoolhouse. I'm going to back up a little bit more. I wrote a book, Black Males in the Green Mountains, Colorblindness and Cultural Competence in the Vermont Public Schools, focused on the Vermont Public Schools. You ask why? This is an exceptional place. There's none of that here. Well, the Office of Civil Rights in 1999 did a great statewide survey finding that bullying and harassment were endemic in the public school system. 1999. I grounded my book in this. I didn't just pick out the air and decide to write. Evidence, testimony, oral testimony. So this book was started, and there were 5 issues that came up in the book. 5 have been somewhat addressed around the schoolhouse. You want to know what the 5th issue is? Endemic racism throughout Vermont. We have not gotten there yet. That's the 5th issue. And I'm ready to embark on it because I live in the perfect environment to do a social survey. And that's living amongst a whole bunch of Vermont white folk. I'm going to put it right out there. And I now vet people. What was your life growing up here in Vermont? Because one, Vermont had, when they were talking about the Great Migration North, guess who was migrating north too? The KKK. A presence here. Book, Burning White, Fiery Crosses in the Green Mountains by Maudine Neal, published. Not many people talk about that book, but it talks about the move of the Ku Klux Klan here in Vermont. And I know folks whose families, they were duped into it. It was a great Christian organization. People were duped into joining this until they got involved. They were part of the whole Winter Carnival. What was it? The cakewalk and all of that. Right here in Vermont. But we claim exceptionalism. Let's face it, racism impacts all of us, no matter where we are. Here we are in an isolated space, and this kind of stuff is happening still today. I have faith and hope. Some people say, why? Because I'm committed to those who are not yet here. We talk about 7 generations. We talk about 6 generations. One thing I meant to mention, every time we step into a space in this state, we have to acknowledge the land in which we sit, work, live, and die on. This is the land of the Wabanaki, the Dawn people. Recognize and acknowledge. Please. This is how we're going to teach. We got to walk the talk. And I'm depending on white families to pick up the rod. I hope I'm not freaking people out, but this is just the way I talk. I'm dependent on you folks. These are your children too. I grew up understanding that all children belong to the community. And I'm the first to tell you, I raised a little white Vermont girl. And she's now out in the world and thanks me for being her spiritual mother. So yeah, they all belong to us. When I step in the classroom and I see a predominance of white faces, these are my kids too. Understand that. And I hope that teachers that are white walk in the classrooms and see the same thing when they see black and brown faces. We all belong to each other. Our origins are from one source. And I grew up here in a very basic way. Black makes white. Let me just leave you with that.
Thank you so much, Denise Dunbar. Irene Renner. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay, perfect. Would you like to go next?
I would. Thank you.
Thank you.
The U.S. has a very colorful history. People have had to do courageous things to survive and to move this country forward. And it's only appropriate that on Juneteenth we take a moment to remember that diversity has made us strong. In Fairfax, the school children have an annual activity that they do making posters for Juneteenth, and then they are displayed at the annual celebration. And from the content of those posters, I'm well aware that they have learned what Juneteenth is about, what oppression is about, and what change needs to happen here. Role playing is a really great way, of course, for teachers to make history real, that it's not just sitting in a textbook. You mentioned reading to end racism. I was part of that years ago as well, reading to children at the Essex Elementary School. Again, hoping to open their worlds up if they hadn't already seen children of color in the pages of a children's book. And then there's always Vermont Reads, which has an annual book choice. And a number of them have helped open my world. And I'm sure they have for Vermonters, young and old. The first that comes to mind is The Hate You Give, which was a few years back, but a fabulous book. I think Brown Girl Rising was another one. I know I read that. I believe it was also Vermont Reads. So many opportunities to educate ourselves. And it just means being aware, having the discipline to tailor your reading this summer to some authors that you might not naturally pick up. But it would behoove us all to broaden our reading list. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to topic 3, oral history, memory, and community. This question is, what role can storytelling play in building stronger communities today? I'd like to ask Irene Renner, Dr. Roy, and Elise Gayette. Does that sound about right?
I'm not doing that.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Joke?
That was a joke.
Okay, sorry guys.
Or was that a trick question?
I don't know.
Anyways, would any of you like to start? Do you have an answer ready?
Can you read the question again, please?
Sure. What role can storytelling play in building stronger communities today?
What was the question?
About how stories. Well, I'll just do a brief one since I just spoke about reading. Right here in South Burlington, you've got a resident named Emily Bernard, last I knew. She's a professor at UVM. She's written a number of books. One of them is called Black as the Body. That came out several years ago. And it's another one of the books on my shelf that I've read. And it talks about her grandmother's history, her mother's history, and her own. And she mentions her daughters as well. And again, helping me to understand where she came from and the challenges she's faced as a Black woman in the U.S. And I think, again, be able to empathize with people. There's nothing like reading their stories. And I'm more of a reader of stories than a teller of stories, believe it or not. But it does help, I think, to just be open to learning about others' backgrounds and their struggles and their triumphs. Thanks.
Can I just add on to that about
Please.
reading to end racism, since you segued that?
Yeah.
The beauty of reading to end racism, it's not just a bunch of kids being read to in the classroom by the teacher. It's the leadership in the community. Remember, we model behavior that we want students to live. So if we're coming in as adults in the classroom saying this is important, we also bring in the high school kids. Nothing like looking up at students that you're aspiring to be like.
That's great.
And share those stories. So this is a community-wide event. We've gotten Peter Clavel, the first reader in the program, to the last mayor, what was his name? Miro? Is he? Yeah.
Miro.
And we've even had our new mayor. So at the end of the day, you get the community involved. That lifts up the importance of this. And it's no mystery, it's no taboo, because everybody's jumping in the pool.
Elise, did you want to add on to this question?
Sure. When I think of storytelling, I think of that as one tool in a historian's toolbox. And when children are studying history in school, they should be being historians. Just as, when you're studying science, you go to the lab and you're being scientists. When you're studying history, you have to do history. History is not a list of facts and dates. History is interpretation of facts. And we have to allow people in school to make interpretations and make their own interpretations. And we have to honor those interpretations as long as they are backed up by enough evidence and enough facts. So as historians in the classroom, I often you have children collect stories. You have them collect all kinds of information. You have them go out into the community and interview people. You have them look at buildings. You have them go into buildings and ask people what's going on in those buildings. And kids love doing this. You're getting out of the classroom. You're getting out in the community. That's where you're going to get the data in order to interpret. And it can be a lot of fun for kids because what they're doing is they're being detectives. And, think about the detective shows on TV where everybody brings in all this data and they put it up on the big board with the pictures and all the data and the arrows going here and there in order to figure out what happened. That's what children in the classroom should be doing. They should all be bringing in all sorts of different perspectives from different people, putting it up on the board and interpreting. That's history. Sitting and memorizing a list of dates and times and that sort of thing is not history at all. And it's really important when you're collecting stories to get them from a lot of different points of view. And when I worked for a Turning American History grant at one time, we made cards. We made a lot of cards, and this happens to be I think this is our Civil War deck, where we have 100 different perspectives on the Civil War in this packet from all sorts of different people of, different nationalities, different races, different genders, and they're here. And what we would do is pass them out to kids. And when we studied any topic, they needed to look at that topic from the point of view of this person. And they were not guessing. There's no guessing allowed. They had to research the person and they need to figure out what that person's perspective was and how that person might have thought about this or that. And then when you're done with that, you put it all together. Everybody hears each other's perspective on whatever it is that's being taught. And immediately, kids, people, adults understand how complex our history is. It is complex. There's ambiguity in our stories, and we need to be comfortable with complexity, comfortable with ambiguity. We need to help children be comfortable analyzing and interpreting information for themselves. We cannot feed them the history. That's propaganda. That's not what we're doing in school. We're helping people interpret information. And they will be less ignorant at the end of this. Because the problem is ignorance. The problem is not knowing the truth about our history. Because the truth about our history will help us become wise in the ways of humanity, become wise in the way our society works or doesn't work. And then we can learn lessons from that to make things better into the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Amina, what story from your own life or work most changed how you understand freedom, community, or belonging?
I don't really think I have one specific story, but participating in events like the Vibrant Lives Project, I get to interview a bunch of different people and get a bunch of different perspectives. And it's really inspiring to hear people who are older than me and have much more wisdom than me talk about their lives and talk about their history. And yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you. All right, I have a question for all of you now, just to bring in some closing thoughts. What is one action individuals, families, schools, or communities can take to help cultivate freedom, belonging, and opportunity in Vermont?
Just stay curious. We've been somehow educated out of our curiosity. Let's reclaim our curiosity. That's it. like when we were children. You were curious about that child next door that looked different than you, but there might have been somebody going, don't point, don't look, don't ask questions. Be curious, be courageous. Own your voice. Nobody can tell you not to be, just be.
I'd like to add a couple of observations very quickly. The 2 speakers ago, we heard our panelist, Sister Future Leader, to say that she relished speaking to adults and what they had to say. I would encourage focus on so-called retired people, elders, grands, etc., with respect to being more current, if you will, and interacting with young people. Many children, many students put a lot of value in what adults and retired people say. They are a resource in our community, and they're being overlooked by the system, whatever you call the system, that says now that you're retired, you aren't valuable anymore. Yet they walk around with all of this knowledge and all this experience, and they're just ready to help make a difference. I submit that that's an area in terms of the oral history, if you will. And secondly, you don't have to have a whatever kind of degree to be able to impact and make a difference on families across the board. Thirdly, on that, it's important to be honest and truthful. You hear people talk about certain institutions and folk who live behind gated communities. Take Yale University as a small example. You often hear Yale this, Yale that, rah, rah. But nobody ever talks about Elihu, Yale, who the university is named after. He was a merchant slave, and he was skillful enslaver, and he was rich as an enslaver, but you never hear that. So I'm saying there are adults who will put it out there. They don't fear any bosses anymore, and they will talk to children in an open and an honest way. They bring love, they bring truth, they bring trust, they bring reciprocal relationship, they bring accountability. So I would say that is one of the areas that is clearly overlooked, and yet so powerful in terms of another member of this one human family that we all share.
I would say communication. I absolutely despise TikTok and Instagram. But it is a way that my 20-year-old daughter and all of her peers communicate. And so I'm the old fogey with a Facebook account, but now I'm trying to figure out Instagram. I refuse to do TikTok.
Well,
Right. But I say that, in all seriousness, I say that communication is important, not just our modern ways of communicating, but also what I would call old school communication, which is sitting down and having a meal together, cooking and inviting people into your home for spaghetti dinner night or something like that. Intimate types of settings every once in a while. And cell phones are not allowed at the table. Just the little things like that, because sometimes we have to be more intentional, right? About listening, about creating the space, the environment for people to have the types of conversations that we started off this program with. Because we are very removed. A lot of our young people especially are very removed from that type of conversation and engagement. So I would say communication is something that is crucial to freedom. Yeah.
to the annoyance of a lot of people that I grew up with, I think you should question everything. Question everything. Don't let other people's assumptions, get into your head and you think and they think they know the truth. So just as an example in my life, so when I found out that there was a black family living in South Burlington right after the Civil War that had a farm, I sit back and I have all kinds of questions to ask about that. And one of the questions was, well, where did they get their money? How did they buy that farm? And if I hadn't asked that question, I would have stopped at a story that said, here's a black man in Vermont after the Civil War. He can afford his own farm. His son-in-law fought in the Civil War to end slavery. And now the family made it great. It fits into all the stories that we tell about ourselves, right? You can't believe those stories. You have to keep questioning. So when I found out, this is how I found out about the farming community in Heinsberg, because that's where he got the money. This was an enslaved man, Shubal Clark, his wife, Violet Bassett Clark. They came from Connecticut. They had been enslaved. They moved to Heinsberg in the middle of nowhere in the 1790s, shortly after statehood. And they did make it good up on that hill because they knew what they were doing. They were farming. They were really good farmers. They were such good farmers that they were on the agricultural census, and not every farm got on that census. So they had made it good, and that's where that man got his money, from being in that family. So asking a question and going further is really important. Of course, the danger of it is you never end questioning, right? There are always more questions, and you just have to keep following them. And I think this is a really good thing to teach children. Instead of, I used to ask questions when I was in school as a youngster, and they were not appreciated. So I stopped asking them. I stopped raising my hand because I knew I wasn't going to be called on, because all the boys were called on first. I'm sure, that you all, in here, depending on your gender, went through something like that. But so for me, it's questioning, always question it, because you don't know what gems you're going to find in the answers. There are a lot of gems out there.
Irene, do you have anything you want to add?
I would just say, and I'm probably preaching to the choir, get out of your comfort zone. If you're into church, go to a different church. If you're into politics, go sit at a meeting in another town. It's amazing what you can learn when you listen to just a different crowd than the one you usually hang with. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Roy, do you want to add something to our closing thought question?
I would endorse what I just heard here about differences and the fact that we can learn from differences. Differences does not mean trouble. Differences does not buy into the divisive nature with which we the people, are played against each other. Because when that happens, somebody up here is benefiting. So ask that question. Why is he inviting me to this or that? Is it really worth my time? What is it? ROI? Something on investment? Return on investment? Because we are a gem. We're put here, as I said earlier, for a reason. What's really interesting is if we look at things in terms of one spoke on this wheel, just money, I think it's important to us to become financially literate and make certain our children become financially literate. This is an economy, capitalism, and there's a lot of money in racism. There's a lot of money in exploiting women. On the national market right now, it wasn't all flesh and blood that drove the Epstein fraternity. There was money involved there. Selling women and men, young boys. So I'm saying becoming aware of literacy, of financial literacy is important. One of the reasons that Marion Barry, former mayor of Washington, D.C., was harped on is because he was brilliant when it came to money and money management. And one of the reasons that the Southern oligarchs attacked him and eventually set him up to be, go to jail and all that. He also liked women, and they used women and drugs to put him in jail. But the real reason was he stopped the financial exploitation of the politicians, especially those from the South, who were exploiting the community. So all of the contracts were going to non-Black residents. And so he halted that. And when he did that, he did it by educating the community and so on and so forth. And the big boys said, oh, wait a minute, we can't have this. Dr. King, if you remember, was cool with a lot of folk as long as he said, jump on the counter and have a hot dog and a milkshake and so on and so forth. But when he said, beware of the military industrial complex and what is happening to our money, and he started speaking internationally, somebody pulled the plug. And many of you out there know who some of those somebodies were. You know about the COINTELPRO program. They changed the name of it. The power brokers, changed the name of COINTELPRO, but that still exists. The kind of hate and exploitation of other members of our community who don't take advantage of reading, listening, being analytical, learning, and recognizing that we're part of an international community. You'd be surprised at how many countries out of Montpelier that there's an ongoing dialogue, but it does not include you, and it sure does not include me. How many Black American members of the governor's cabinet in Vermont do you know, living or dead? Well, then let's try another. How many Native American members of male and female Vermont governor's cabinet do you know? So I'm saying let's look at making real, quote, freedom and unity. There's a lot that we can do. Mm-hmm. We talk the talk. Let's walk the walk.
So much. All right, we're now going to open up the floor for about 10 minutes of questioning from the audience. Do we have a microphone that we're going to pass around? Okay, perfect. Alrighty then. Anyone with questions, raise their hand.
I don't have a question, just a quick announcement. Right down the hall in the senior center, the South Burlington Rotary Club meets at 7:30 in the morning coming Thursday. And our speaker is going to be the executive director of Rokeby. And she'll have a half-hour talk on Rokeby. If anybody is interested, it's open to the public. You're welcome to come, and we'd love to see you there.
What time did you say that was?
7:30 a.m.
In the morning.
7:30 in the morning. Yeah.
Because she's retired and no children at home.
That's the commitment, right?
if it, I have another announcement following up on what he said, because Jane is also coming to give a class at Vermont Genealogy Library on the fall schedule. So keep an eye on the fall schedule. And it will be the third in our series, one of which was Elise, and she was wonderful. And we also had a Jerome Lafayette Naramore, whose presentation was wonderful. And it was all on early Black Vermonters, and particularly with respect to the Revolution, because there were quite a number of revolutionary soldiers in Vermont that were Black, even though nobody knows that. And if you were not able to come to the earlier ones, and if you aren't available on the night, the very reasonable time of 6:30 p.m. or no, I take it back. Hers is not a night one. It's 10:30 on Saturday. Mm-hmm. But all of those will always be available on. You can get a link to it instead of coming to it live in person.
Yep, we got a question back there. Let me get to you.
Thank you. Questions for, I think, Elise, because I think you said that you grew up in Vermont.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Did you say that you grew up in Vermont?
Yes, I grew up in Rutland.
So I grew up in the South, very segregated, Black high school, just back of the bus, all the stereotypes. Wow. But I would just like to contrast that with what it was like in the North and Vermont, as to when we were young, what the community was like in terms of for the African Americans, Blacks.
Well, I can speak about Rutland. Probably should turn this on. I can speak a little bit about Rutland. My first experience recognizing racism when I was 6 years old. We had a swimming pool, a big, huge above ground swimming pool. It was great. Spent the whole summer there. Well, after picking beans from the garden for my mother, then I'd go swimming at the swimming pool. And one day there was a little Black girl there, and a boy called her the you know what word, and she turned around and beat him up. And I was like, this little 6-year-old, I was like, wow, a girl could beat up a boy. Whoa, I thought that was great. But then my second thought was, but wait, that word that he used, I use it to order candy from the candy shack. I don't know how many of you remember the little chocolate babies. So I really, as a 6-year-old, started paying a little bit more attention to, what was going on around me, especially with people of color. And there weren't a lot in Rutland visibly. But since I've been doing my historical research, I understand that there are an awful lot of people in Vermont who look like I do, and they're descended from Black folks. For a lot of people, it's been hidden in their families. I know people who have discovered their Black roots, and their families won't talk to them anymore. So this is a reality in Vermont. If you could pass, people passed really quickly because that's the way you were going to survive in this, in this nation. I had a date with a Black man once from the other high school, Rutland High School. I went to the Catholic school. Rutland High School, my mother called the pagan school, but that's, neither here nor there. So I guess I was going out with the pagan, but it wasn't the reason they were upset at me. They were upset because he was Black. And that was a shock to me because I didn't think of my parents as being, prejudiced. And of course they said they weren't. They were just looking out for my welfare. But Rutland, I think, is similar to a lot of towns. We had a lot of Italian immigrants in Rutland. They were discriminated against because they had dark skin. My father is Lebanese. He was discriminated against. He had dark skin. He grew up in St. Albans. The kids had a nickname for him. Started with an N. This is Vermont. This is very deep into the DNA of Vermont. I think everywhere you go. I mean, today I ride up to Alberg, Vermont. What do I see? A Confederate flag. It's very deep into the state. And the reason we don't know that is because we don't know our real history. We know a little surface history. Or we look at the theater of history on the stage of history, and most people have been taken off it. They were there originally, but in the writing of history, they've been taken out, and they're not there anymore. So it's one of the things that I like to do with Vermont history is, I don't know how many of you, when you were kids, had a coloring book that was just pictures were sort of partly drawn on it. And you had a paintbrush with water, and you put it all over the picture, and the picture magically appeared. That's my job as a historian. I'm splashing a lot of water around those pages because we're never going to get anywhere in this country if we don't do that. I think that's the first step to ending racism. What stories do we hear? What pictures do we see? What monuments do we see when we're growing up? They need to tell the whole story. We need to splash a lot of water.
Yep.
Two footnotes, if I may. One, as I said, we have been here in Vermont going on some 40 years, 20 of those being in Franklin County. When I first moved into Franklin County, one of the neighbors said to me, or pointed out to me, that within 5 minutes car drive was one of the KKK meeting places. Since I've been in Franklin County, I've discovered that 90 minutes from where I live, there's a KKK summer resort. They do target practice almost year round. So we're part of a sameness about a lot of just truth that is suppressed, denied, or pretending, well, are you certain? I don't know. I've been living here all these years. I've never heard of this. Yeah, okay. And finally, many people aren't fully aware of the group that went into Texas. Did you ever wonder what the makeup of and the dynamics were that helped to prevent Granger from eventually going? Well, that was a cadre of strong resistance there. And it wasn't until numbers of soldiers were large enough to go into and help to liberate those who had been enslaved. And the majority of those who went with strangers were Black soldiers. 166 Vermont Black soldiers, or quote, colored soldiers, call it the colored division, were part of that team. And overall, you had some 5,000 who were Black folk, who were part of the soldier group that made it possible for him to be successful in helping to bring about change. So I'm saying that tidbit about how we help and work together to bring about the desired positive change oftentimes is not included in the written history or even verbally acknowledged history. So that's important to share. What is the truth? Especially when you know it or when you hear something that is contrary to their own research that you did. Dick Gregory used to say, if you want to hide something from folk, put it in a book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to turn things back over to Renee and Rajni because we're coming up on our end time.
Rajni, you take it, but I think our official end time is 3:30. I don't want to overextend our program here, but I'll let you take the lead on this.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Want to express appreciation for our panelists, Roy V. Hill, for Sister Mrs. Renner, for Ms. Guyette, for Dr. Jolivet, for Dr. Denise Dunbar, for my daughter, Amina Rose Edens, and for Nadia Frazier. Please give them a warm hand of applause.
Well done, sisters.
And I want to appreciate the space for South Burlington Library hosting us, and just put an impression upon each and every one of your hearts in terms of what you receive and take away and draw from this place moving forward. Let us move forward in a spirit of boundless appreciation of our humanity, of releasing ourselves from prior underestimations of what values we hold in our stories, of being curious and thinking more deeply about who we are and how we can involve ourselves and collaborate intentionally, coming from a space of intentionality so we don't waste opportunities and time and space and life and breath. This life is precious, and our children, our people, and our future generations are deserving of it. Please give yourselves a warm round of applause.